So, to pick up from where we left off in part 1, I started work on making a small frame for this vinyl window I rescued from the landfill. I figured it wouldn't be too hard to retrofit it to work in this case. I used a flush trim bit in my router to cut back the siding around the window opening, and then set to work trimming out the window. I'll fix it.
Oh yeah.
I made sure to cut a 15-degree bevel at the top of the trim, and to angle the windowsill so most precipitation that reaches the window will drain away from the structure. Next, I set to work making frames for the hinged roof sections of the externally accessible nesting box. Nothing fancy here, just wood glue and pocket hole screws. Then I started making the outer frames of the primary, large, clean-out doors. I cut a few spacers on the table saw to set the reveal of this door just right. Although, somebody really should tell this guy that if he would step back for just a second, he would see that he has clearly put the door on sideways. Then Hannah came down and started priming the duck coop. I made sure to get a time lapse of this so you wouldn't have to see in real time just how long it was taking her to do this with a 2.5-inch brush. Meanwhile, I was working on the small sliding door that would grant the ducks access to their coop from inside the run. I cut down some of the leftover strapping I had to make the door. Then I ripped a 2x6 down the middle and cut a groove or rabbet out of each half to make the track the door slides in. Since my wife was still slaving away with her 2.5-inch brush, I figured I'd get the roller going to help with some coverage.
Yeah, it's amazing how that one trick pony.
The part that also this door.
Baby! Hi. I'm right here. It's like, it's interesting. It's pretty fun to watch. Remember you watched this when you were very small, baby?
What you doing? Yeah. Then came the day the ducks arrived in the mail. Hannah went in at the quack of dawn to pick them up from the post office.
Nope, they do not approve.
We got a mix of Gold Star hybrids, Khaki Campbells, and White Star hybrids from Murray McMurray Hatchery. 9 hens and 1 drake. Pressure's on now. Ducks actually reach full size in just 6 weeks, and they'll need somewhere to stay. Doesn't help that this has been the rainiest spring we've had in a long time here in northern Maine, and I only have so much time to work on this project.
Hey, baby.
What's Daddy?
What you doing?
I made the last bit of floor for the nesting box out of some leftover 3/4-inch plywood I had. I cut it to size and notched the corners with my jigsaw to fit around the framing members. Then came the time for some hardware cloth. This stuff is not fun to work with. I cut it to size and then fastened it simply with some long T50 staples. But if I had to do it again, I'd probably use short screws with washers. Here I'm mounting the trim piece for the nesting box that the T-strap hinges for both the hatches will be mounted to.
Oh yeah, go for it. I'll make the video more entertaining.
No, don't put it in.
I fastened these pieces of trim in place with 3/4-inch roofing nails. And as in part 1, I used the nibbler to cut these sheets to length. Nothing complicated about the latch install here. I just went with a couple small hasp style latches and that was that. Next, I cut and tacked in some stop molding for the window to keep it from overextending into the coop when closed. Then, more hardware cloth. I plan to cover the inner parts of these doors with metal and hinge them to swing upward so they can function as something like small roofs when open, offering lots of ventilation in the coop with minimal water infiltration. Then I put in another piece of stop molding. Which required a little bit of trimming to facilitate. Then I installed a barrel bolt to lock the doors shut. Somewhere in the process of removing these outer doors for priming and reinstalling them, their alignment got quite messed up. You can see the glaring issue with the reveal around the doors in this shot, which definitely needed attention.
I know it's getting me bedtime.
Mm-hmm.
And just like that, the ducks are ready to move into the coop. Hannah put down some shavings for bedding, and in they went.
Oh, they found the heat lamp. Look at them.
That's great.
Now it's time for more hardware cloth. I want to get their run sufficiently secure so their duck door can be left open at night. Meanwhile, Hannah prepped the coop for red barn paint and went to work. I have really appreciated her help on this project. After some more rainy weather, it was finally time to put the metal doors on. I cut the trim to size first and bent the corners to make one continuous piece. You can see here how I overlap the top and side so that the rain will hopefully shed away. The width worked out so I could just score along the edge of this rib a few times with a utility knife to bend and break the metal sheets to size. Isn't that such a pleasant noise? And here you can see I finally pulled those doors back into alignment. Much better. The last thing needed to secure the run was a door. I figured I'd do a Dutch door for this, just in case we want to dump some scraps into the run without opening it up all the way.
What's he doing?
To make the doors, I ripped down a couple 2x6s in half and cut rabbets out of the length of them for the hardware cloth to be fastened into. Now I have to ask, have you ever seen a cut so precise that it cuts from one day to another? I also cut lap joints on the ends, the same depth and thickness as the rabbets to make the joint nice and strong. Then a few trim screws and a bit of wood glue later, and we were ready to fasten the hinges and mount the doors. I used a barrel bolt to secure the upper and lower halves of the Dutch door to each other. And a gate latch to lock the whole door closed to the run. Then I installed a small eye on the duck door and set up a pair of pulleys so I could open it from outside the run. Seems to be working well so far. After that, I fastened a flexible strip of rubber to flash the top edge of the hatch on the nesting box. That way any water which gets past the overhang of the roof will run down the rubber, while still leaving me freely able to open the hatch. Then, some primer and paint for the door, and yes, more hardware cloth. My stapler was really wearing out by this point. Then, even more hardware cloth. This stuff in particular is going to be fastened around the entire perimeter of the structure, the coop and the run, to hopefully prevent critters from digging their way in. We pinned the outer part of it down with 6-inch ground staples, wherever we could get them in around all the rocks.
Maybe you had it.
I had it, past tense. You there?
Maybe it's just that corner. That's the same piece of siding that got me too. That's probably even better, actually. That is some of the most interesting hammering technique I've ever seen.
I also used a load of dirt to make a small ramp for the ducks. And now it's time for a rock montage. But for real, these rocks are just to make it easier to clean the area around where the ducks get watered. Next, I put a small pair of latches to hold the metal doors shut.
Conundrum.
There is enough room.
Phew!
And set to work finally building the upper storage loft doors. I didn't really want to have to walk past an outward swinging pair of doors when feeding the ducks, so I purchased these steel rods and pulleys from the local Amish store to make my own barn door hardware.
It's so cool.
But because they'll bypass each other, the pulley for the left of the other door will be right here, and the right will be just opposite this one. A couple bushings probably would have made better spacers, but these washers are what I had, and they work.
Should be enough room.
I had to cut a section off the top of the inner door so the hardware of the outer door could bypass it freely while riding on the same rail. And to my surprise, it worked pretty well. If I had any large enough pieces of siding left over, I may have just closed in this other side. But as it stands, when you've made about a dozen doors for a single duck coop, what's two more at this point? I made these ones out of some rough sawn 1x4 strapping I had left over from another project.
Daddy! You like the fluffy microphones?
Whoa.
Hope.
Then, a couple coats of paint later, and the doors were good to go. I think if we were aiming to make this coop as beautiful as possible, there's definitely potential for more trim in a few places, but we've got a lot on the go, and it is a duck coop after all. Maybe we'll do a follow-up video someday with some more finishing details. To those of you who have stuck around this long, we hope you've enjoyed and maybe even gleaned something for your own build. Let us know. Thanks for watching. Look, what's this? Can you say duck?
Yeah.
Yeah.